in America.
Only in America.
Only in America.
Only America.
Only in America.
This week, a look at America's dairy farms and how longtime farmers are embracing their immigrant employees.
It reinforces all the stupid stereotypes of rural America that aren't there. Having lived several places, I can tell you there's as many people that are xenophobic in the middle of a city as there are in rural America. And then a lot of times because it's a smaller community, they're able to interact more. So there's a section of the community that's interacted with these immigrant laborers, and they understand and they know these people.
From the National Immigration Forum, I'm Ali Narani, and this is Only in America. You know, over my years at the National Immigration Forum, I've gotten to know more about dairy farms than I ever thought I would have. In fact, I've gotten to know dairy farmers, particularly in Idaho, not just their operations, but their family histories, and most importantly, the relationship that they have with their immigrant workforce. And the thing is, whether you are a dairy owner in Idaho or Wisconsin or Ohio or New York or California or Texas or wherever, you have a relationship with the individuals that are working for you, unlike anything else I've seen in our nation's economy. Because the fact is that in most cases, that dairy owner is working shoulder to shoulder with someone from another country to make sure that those cows are milked twice a day. So this week, let's go to Ohio to begin with and understand how dairy farmers in Ohio are learning more about their immigrant workforce. Kathy Davis grew up on an Ohio dairy farm that's been in her family for generations. It's actually a point of pride for her, and it's also something that introduced her to the world in ways that, well, she just did not expect.
I'm seventh generation here on our farm. Grew up feeding calves, driving tractors, all that kind of stuff. At one time, I thought I did not want to come back to the farm. So I was an exchange student for a year. Then I went to a liberal arts college. And then I decided I really like cows better than people. And then you have a lot of really wonderful people working on the farm. It's kind of like growing up with a bunch of uncles and aunts who are guiding and shaping you along with your parents and your other extended family. So that was really nice. I was lucky enough in our area, we have quite a few Rotary Exchange students. So it seemed like we always had an aunt or an uncle who were hosting somebody. So at family reunions, we'd get together and you'd hear a little bit about South Africa or Thailand or all sorts of different places. So that cultivated that interest early on.
After college, Kathy returned to her family farm where she still works as a young stock manager. And during that time, she's seen the increased need for immigrant labor across the agricultural sector.
I mean, the cows have to get milked regardless. So when we started having problems with that, my father was talking to somebody with our church and they knew somebody, you know how that goes. And we ended up getting some people from Latin America to help us out. And that's been a godsend. It really has made a huge difference because they are serious about this. They want to work. They want to learn. But they're here for a purpose. These gentlemen don't come up just because they want to be in the United States away from their families for long periods of time. They come up because they have a child going through college and they need to pay the tuition. Or somebody's getting married and they need to build a house, or they have family illnesses, something on a long-term effect that they're trying to pay for. There's a myriad of different things that they're doing this for, and they're here for those time periods to take care of that, and then they go back.
When we visit families, and we often get a chance to see the houses that the employees have built or are working on from the jobs they were doing up here on dairy farms. And they can see the different way that their employees are living than other people in the village and how they've been able to create a more stable life for their families.
That was Mercedes Falk. Unlike Kathy, her appreciation for dairy farming came later in life.
I was born and raised right outside of the Milwaukee area, and I guess you could say I'm a proud Wisconsinite. Grew up eating a lot of cheese, but I was not connected to the dairy industry. Growing up, I kind of had a suburban lifestyle, and it wasn't until I moved back to Milwaukee after college, I started just getting involved with community-supported agriculture and working on a small farm and really starting to just begin to understand how food grows. And I was a little bit surprised at how it wasn't part of my knowledge base before that, and a little bit ashamed, I guess you could say. And so I just started getting more interested in growing food and wanting to know more about it. And so I was a teacher at that time, and I taught in the city of Milwaukee for 7 years. Kind of took a leap of faith, and I moved out to Western Wisconsin to do an internship on a small farm. I wanted to find a farm that integrated animals and vegetables because I just wanted like the whole picture of everything. And so it was just supposed to be for a season, but that was in 2014. And as life has evolved, I'm still on that farm, but I'm also working as a Spanish English interpreter with dairy farmers, and then also in charge of the Puentes Bridges organization.
Puentes, as we're going to hear, is an organization that helps Wisconsin farmers and their immigrant employees build a mutual understanding. Here's Mercedes on the origins of the initiative.
So it was formed in 2001. A Spanish English teacher was approached by Carl Dooley, who was a local UW Extension agent. And he just said, hey, you know what? There are a lot of farmers who are hiring folks that speak Spanish, and they have a hard time communicating each other at all. So I think it'd be great if you could teach them some Spanish and they could learn to communicate. And she was like, okay, but they're not going to learn what they need to know in a 20-hour Spanish class, but I'm happy to give a go at it. And she started doing it and realized, like, as she was helping with teaching Spanish, but also a little bit of interpreting, that there were some big cultural gaps and that there was a lot more to teach than just the language. And so they got a grant to go to Mexico to a language school. And there was about 15, 20 farmers that went on that trip. And they had like an afterthought to just say, you know what, why don't we go see if we can visit some of the families of their employees? So they just planned a one-day thing at the end of the trip. And that little tiny part of the trip quickly converted into the most profound experience for a lot of the farmers. The moms and dads and wives and brothers and sisters all dressed up in the nines, and met them in Orizaba, and there were lots of tears and gratitude shed and gifts exchanged on parts of the families, and the farmers were just in awe of how generous their employees' families were. And John Rosenau, he is kind of the main farmer that helped found the organization. He got back and talked with Sean and said, we got to do whatever we can to not just make this a one-time thing. And so they put their heads together, and a couple years later were able to form it into a nonprofit and have continued to do trips ever since. And except this past year, 2021, we have not taken a trip. The last time we went was in January of 2020. And we, besides the trips, we also just kind of work with farmers and give presentations and give people in the community a chance to know immigrants and get to know them on a closer level, that they're not just a statistic or something far away.
These trips help farmers and their employees build unique relationships and mutual understanding.
They are blown away by the generosity of the folks that we meet and how people go out of their way to make sure that they are accommodated. I think it's a humbling experience for all of us, even myself, who has been 4 or 5 times now. And taking the trip, for example, there's one farmer named Mike. He was putting it off for a while because he was like, I don't have time. And his wife was a little bit leery about the trip and the safety of it all. But he finally decided. He had like 3 days one year. And so it was only half the time of our trip, but he flew in on the same day as us, but flew out like 3 or 4 days early. And one of his old employees met him in like one of the villages that we normally go to. And he was like, okay, where do you need to go? Like, I will take you wherever. And he just went above and beyond to make sure that he saw every single one of his employees on his farm. And he could tell that it wasn't, he had to like borrow a car, and, you know, it was a little bit challenging. And he even drove him all the way back to the airport, which is 4 hours away. And he just teared up and he looked at me as I was doing some interpretation. And he just said, why didn't I take this trip sooner? And then when he got back, he started working with a local high school and did a Spanish English exchange with his employees and some senior students. And then he also helped organize basketball and soccer leagues and to make sure that his employees had time off for all of that.
Experiences like these are a powerful way to combat misinformation and harmful stereotypes about immigrants, especially in a climate of widespread anti-immigrant rhetoric, which Kathy says has impacted both immigrants' sense of safety and the national perception of rural America.
Well, they wonder, are they safe here? Not only are they safe from being deported for some crazy reason, are they safe going around in the communities? What should they do? Should they run home? And it's challenging for both them and for us because we want the best for all of our employees, but we also want them to be safe. As far as our community, typically they've been very supportive and they understand the need for labor in the agricultural sector as well as other places. But if you have opinions not based on facts, little xenophobia, things like that, it can make a really nasty conversation, a nasty atmosphere to live in. And I certainly wouldn't want to be in that myself, and I don't expect other people to deal with that as well. And it reinforces all the stupid stereotypes of rural America that aren't there. Having lived several places, I can tell you there's as many people that are xenophobic in the middle of a city as there are in rural America. And then a lot of times because it's a smaller community, they're able to interact more. So there's a section of the community that's interacted with these immigrant laborers, and they understand and they know these people.
So what does the dairy industry need in terms of immigration policy?
We need something very much more comprehensive than what we have. Most of what we have is not geared toward dairy. It's geared toward seasonal labor with fruits and vegetables, whereas dairy is a all year round program. And a lot of what is there just doesn't deal with us. So that needs to be overhauled.
I would say there is a feeling of being frustrated with the system and wishing that there would be changes that could be made and that more people around us understood how important this was.
But a modernized immigration system wouldn't just help farmers hire the workers they need, it could have ripple effects across interconnected industries.
In most every state, agriculture on some way, it brings in the most revenue, either if it's straight on farm, but then you have to multiply that by the traffic or the transport costs that take care of the people that do that, restaurants, groceries, everything like this. There wouldn't be no processing. There wouldn't be that if there wasn't, the base product to work with. That's one thing. Other thing is there's so many communities that are based on agriculture. When you think of the people on the farm and the wages they make, plus all the supporting facilities such as the granaries, the nutritionists that help us work on the farm, the veterinarians and all that stuff, they have their main place plus their laborers. So the money that those people spend in the town plus the taxes are what support a lot of the areas around here in Ohio outside of the cities.
There are legislative solutions like the Farm Workforce Modernization Act that would have a substantial impact on our agriculture industry and its ability to attract a steady workforce. The bill was passed by the House earlier last year, but has yet to clear the United States Senate. Yet the success of immigrant labor in the dairy industry isn't only about politics. It's about the opportunity to understand just how similar we really are in the ways that matter most.
There is one farm that we work with, and there's a woman in her 50s who is kind of like head of the calf program there. And you wouldn't know based on how she talks, but she moved here at the age of 4 from Switzerland with their parents. Her father wanted to keep farming, but with the situation over there, when his father died, he had no money to be able to buy a farm. The only way that he continued to farm was to move here. So he moved to a small town in Waumea, Wisconsin, packed up everything in a box, and they had no idea if they would ever see their family again. And she advocates a lot for the guys that she works with. And I think when people hear her story and hear how it's so similar to the guys who, and young ladies that come here that just want to follow dreams and create a better life for themselves. And I mean, I think one of the most powerful tools is stories. You know, when people get to hearing a story is powerful, but even stronger is to be able to get to know someone. And so if they can learn what somebody has gone through, the hard work they put into it, and just to have a face-to-face conversation and be like, oh my gosh, like this person has the same goals and same dreams as I do. I think that's kind of the biggest thing for me.
Kathy Davis is a dairy farmer in Ohio. Mercedes Falk is the president of Puentes, a nonprofit helping Wisconsin and Minnesota farmers and immigrant workers bridge cultural and language gaps. You can learn more about their work at immigrationforum.org/podcast. And tune in next week as we look back at year 1 of the Biden presidency and what can be done, not just in the upcoming elections, but in the years ahead for the Biden administration. If you like what you hear, subscribe to Only in America wherever you were listening to this episode. Only in America is produced and edited by Katie Lutz, Joanna Taylor, and Becca Wall. Our artwork and graphics are designed by Carla Leja. I'm Ali Narani, and I will talk to you next week.
Support for the National Immigration Forum comes from the Carnegie Corporation of New York, supporting innovations in education, democratic engagement, and strengthening international peace and security. And from Humanity United. When humanity is united, we can bring a powerful force for human dignity.